Welcome to Discovering Coretta Scott King, a phenomenal woman. Who was she? We see her pictures next to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. We know she is the mother of his children and his wife. But she herself was a phenomenal woman. I will portray her life. My name is Coretta Scott King, and I was born April 27th, 1927. Yes, on a farm about 80 miles outside of Montgomery, Alabama. My father was Obadiah Scott, and he was the 13th child of his parents. 13 out of 25. And Obadiah Scott, his parents owned 300 acres of land. Can you imagine that? This is the 1920s. And there was good timber on that land. And so my father was a timberman, and later he became a barber, and he owned a grocery store and a gas station. My mother, Bernice Scott, a beautiful woman who has such a beautiful voice. Oh, can she sing? And she went to school up until 3rd grade. My mother, Bernice Scott, she had a constant drumbeat that she would tell to my sister Edith, who is 2 years older than me, and our younger brother Obadiah. This is what she would always say. Children, get that education. That way, when you get older, you'll be somebody, and nobody will be able to kick you around. And girls, you get that education, so that way you won't have to depend upon nobody, not even a man. Woo. We took her words to heart. And we started going to school walking down a 3-mile path to our one-room schoolhouse that was filled with about 100 students with the same color of skin like ours, or darker, or even some lighter. We were African American children called colored children, or Negroes at that time. Our school was filled with love. Our textbooks were old and outdated. We had to pay a fee for them as well. We had no playground, no library, no science equipment. And we met from December through March. Now the white children, they had a nice yellow bus to pick them up to take them to school every day. And their school, they had a classroom for every grade. They had science and library and a playground. And their school went from 1st grade all the way up to 12th. Ours stopped at 6th grade. It's not fair. Oh. But our parents had a plan. Now in Marion, Alabama, about 12 miles away from where we lived, too far to walk back and forth in a day. Their plan was to send us to Lincoln High there in Marion, Alabama. Lincoln High was started by ex-slaves, Quakers, and the American Missionary Society right after the Civil War ended in 1865. And the teachers there was white teachers and there were black teachers, all highly educated, men and women. My sister Edith, when she finished that school, she went on to Lincoln High, and she graduated as valedictorian. When I went to Lincoln High, we had to stay in a home with another black family. My parents had to pay them to take care of us. It was too far to walk. And I love my time at Lincoln. It was a great school. Those white teachers and our black teachers, they loved us. Oh, they took such good care of us, and they found the best inside of us and brought it out. And Lincoln High was determined to teach us to make a difference in the world, to make a huge difference. I loved my time there. And when I graduated, I went on to college. I followed my sister, Edith, to Antioch College in Ohio. And Edith, she was the first black student at college. And when I came, there's about 5 of us. And my roommates, 2 white women. I've never lived with white people before. They've never lived with anyone who was colored either. It was a shocking experience for us 3, but we ended up really enjoying ourselves together. And at Antioch, I went to become a teacher. And from being a teacher, I also was taking music lessons because ever since I was a child, I used to love to sing just like my mother. At church and at school, and I recite poetry. Well, my professors at Antioch College really wanted me to go on to become a classical singer. And I liked that very much. Once I was on the stage with Paul Robeson. We were on the same program, and he heard me singing, and he told me, Coretta, you need to go all the way. I was so nervous, but I decided that when I graduated from Antioch, I'm going to become a professional classical singer. When I graduated, I won a scholarship to New England Conservatory of Music. My goal was to be an opera singer and to train in Paris at the Metropolitan Opera House. And go on to Rome and Moscow, sing in San Francisco and New York and Boston, all over the world. Yes. My song, to be everywhere. At New England Conservatory of Music, it was in January, and I was deep into my studies when ring, ring, oh. Yes, this is Coretta speaking. Oh, hi, Mary Powell. Yes, Coretta. This is your friend Mary Powell, and I went to South Spelman, as you well know, and I just want to tell you about somebody who I met when I was in Atlanta. Do you happen to know Martin Luther King Jr.? No, I have never heard of him. Who is that? Oh, well, Coretta. Martin Luther King Jr., he graduated from high school when he was 15. He grew up in Atlanta, and he went to Morehouse. He graduated from there at the age of 19, and then he went on to Crozer Seminary, where he studied systematic theology, and now he is at Boston University working on his PhD. And I think you would really like to meet him. Oh, she's a matchmaker. Well, no, I'm not interested in meeting anyone at this time in my life. No, I'm not interested in meeting anybody, Mary. I'm deep in my studies. I know my career. This is the 1950s. No, I'm not interested in dating anyone at this moment. Oh, but Coretta, he plans to be a Baptist minister. A what? Boring. Oh, I would have nothing to do with those loud Baptists. I am from the African Methodist Episcopal Church. We are quiet and dignified. Oh, those Baptists are loud and narrow-minded and, oh, no. Oh, but Coretta, he is not like that at all. He is charming. He is soft-spoken. And to tell you the truth, he's told me that he's quite cynical about these ladies from the North. He really wants to meet someone from the South. Someone who's charming and intelligent. All right, Mary. you could give him my number. A little while later, ring, ring. Hello, this is Coretta. Hello, Coretta. This is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And I have had a wonderful report about you, and I surely want to meet you. Oh, well, let me check my schedule. Oh, yes. I have a couple hours free on Thursday. I can meet you for lunch. Oh, yes, that would just be wonderful. I'm driving a 1951 green Chevy. It usually takes me about 10 minutes to get over to the conservatory, but I'll be there in 7. All right, see you then. On Thursday, I put on this blue, powder blue suit, wool suit. It's January and it's cold. And then I cover up with my dark jacket, wool jacket. And I stand in front of the conservatory, and right on time, here comes that green 1951 Chevy. Ooh, it's a good looking car too. Ooh, look at it. But Martin Luther King Jr., he seemed to be a little bit short to me. And kind of young too. But at lunchtime, my impression of him grew because we talked about war and peace. We talked about social injustices and economic injustices. And he talked to me about Gandhi, Mahatma Gandhi. That was his main man. When he was at Crozer Seminary, the president from Howard University had come and told them all about him. He had never heard of this man ever before that. Now Gandhi, he lives in India. And he wore big horn-rimmed glasses, mostly wore white. He believed in many thousands of gods, basically. And Martin is very different from him. Believed in one God. But Martin had deep respect for Gandhi and the work that he had done in India because through Gandhi, the British government had an oppressive and brutal rule over the people. But through peaceful marches, non-violent ways, sit-ins and strikes, the British flag came down and the state of India, or the country of India's flag, went up. And Martin felt that what Gandhi did is what needed to be done in our country to end segregation in the South. Ooh, I was so impressed with what he had to say, and I told him that twice when I was at Lincoln High and at Antioch, a white man who had spent at least 6 months with Gandhi in India had come to my high school and my college and told me all about Gandhi way longer before you even heard of his name. Yes, I know all about Gandhi. But in my head, I'm thinking, you go ahead and change the world, and I'm going to go sing on the stage. On the drive home from that restaurant, we were stopped at a stoplight. And he turned to me and he said, Coretta, you have everything I want in a wife. How can you say that? You don't even know me. Oh, I know. You have beauty, intelligence, character, and personality. When can I meet you again? Oh, well, call me. I have to check my schedule later. And he did call. And we went out on Saturday night. And on the way home, he talked about matrimony again. And we continued to go out because I realized I could really be interested in this man. But Paris, the Metropolitan Opera House, that's where I want to go. Well, we would go out bowling, to concerts, to the beach when it got warmer. And Martin Luther King Jr., ooh, he was a smooth dancer. He could do the foxtrot, the waltz, or the jitterbug. But he promised me, he said, Coretta, when I become a minister, I'm going to give up dancing. And he said, Coretta, when I get married, I don't want my wife to work outside of the home. And Coretta, I want to be a pastor of a church in the South. That's where our people need me the most. I plan to end segregation somehow, some way, somewhere. But that's where I'm needed to be. With those words, I could already feel the shackles of Jim Crow locking tight around my ankles. But we continued to go out, and my sister Edith, she said, Coretta, marry this man. You won't have the career that you have planned, but you will have a career. So I let myself fall in love with this man. June 18th of 1953, we were married on my parents' front lawn. My family had moved up to Marion, Alabama. My father had that grocery store and that gas station. Martin's father came from Atlanta and he officiated, and there was a lot of people on our front lawn. And that summer we went back and worked in Atlanta, and in the fall we were living in our own apartment in Boston. Oh, it was a wonderful year, except I had a heavy load of work to do. I had changed my course of study from musical performance, that stage, Paris, to musical education. Because as Martin's wife, I am going to be giving piano lessons, voice lessons, violin lessons, and many other kind of lessons, as well as running choirs, which I'd already been doing back as a teenager anyway, back home. But my course of study was so heavy that Martin would often put on my apron and he would get in that kitchen and he would cook. He could fix pig's snout, pig's ears, pig's feet, cabbage smothered in bacon, fried chicken, cornbread, greens. Ooh, he put his foot in the work that he did in that kitchen. And he also did the heavy chores, like the laundry. And I'm not talking about wash machine and dryer. Oh, no. I'm talking about a washboard. And then we'd hang up the clothes in the corner of our kitchen to dry, not far from our stove. In January, I'm still continuing my last semester of school. And he has like another year and a half. But the next year, he doesn't have to be in Boston. He's just working on his dissertation that year. And he decides that he's going to get a job in the place that he thinks that we're going to be for the next who knows how many years. And there's a couple of colleges in the north who want him to be a dean or a professor. There's a couple other churches that want him to be ministers. And I'm hoping that he wants to stay in the north for 2 or 3 years so I could get my musical career underground, and sing. But no, there was this church in Montgomery, Alabama, called Dexter Avenue Baptist Church that was calling him. And he liked them when he went down there, and they liked him. So he signed a contract. So I had to prepare myself to return to the South and Jim Crow. I graduated in June from New England Conservatory of Music, and then we went on to Montgomery, Alabama. And that next year, it was actually a nice, quiet life that we had. Martin would work on his sermons. He would ask me for advice on what he should say, and we would talk about it. He would write his notes. I would type them. But on Sunday morning, he always got into that pulpit with no notes. And we were thinking that we weren't going to have any children because we've been married for over a year. But I finally became pregnant. And in November of 1955, we had our first baby, Yolanda, who we call Yoki. Ah, yes. 2 weeks later, our life was changed again. Rosa Parks, she left her job there in Montgomery at a department store to get on the bus to go home. Now, if you don't know what it's like to get on a bus in Montgomery, I have to tell you, it was very humiliating. It was a terrible experience. Oh, simply tragic. You would get up the steps and go up the front steps. And you put your dime in. Then you go back down the steps. You go to the back door. You go up the steps. And you would sit back there behind the colored only sign. And that always enraged me. And on this particular night, the front of the bus filled up. A white man came in. There was no seats from him in the white section. And so the bus driver said, "Get on up, you all in the back." And you know he didn't use any nice language either. And his tone was cruel and mean. So everyone in the row behind the color section got up except for Rosa Parks. Because she was tired of giving in to the laws of segregation. That summer, there was a white couple who had paid for her to go to a camp in Tennessee to learn how to be a social disruptor. This white couple wanted segregation to end. They knew it was wrong. Rosa, she was arrested. That night, Martin got the phone call from E.D. Nixon, the president of the NAACP. And at first, Martin was like, "I don't know. I don't think I should do this. No, is this the right motive? I mean, is this the right time?" But he didn't hesitate too long, because later on that night, he was going all around Montgomery, to the honky-tonks, to the theaters, watching the Black people coming down the back stairs from the balcony and handing out flyers, going to the pool house. There was all kinds of people passing out flyers. And where did those flyers come from? Well, Joanne Gibson. Joanne Gibson was a woman at our church. And she was a professor of Alabama State University, which means if she's a Black woman teaching at a college, it has to be a college for Black students. And she had been fed up with the humiliation and the violence that Black people received while riding the bus. And she had taken lawyers to the government officials trying to end segregation. But she always met with a wall. What she did do in the meantime is she decided to write up a boycott. Where should be the carpools? Where should people wait for cars to come pick them up? She worked on all kinds of aspects and what kind of flyers there should be. So when this happened and that flame was ignited by what Rosa Parks did, the flyers were ready to go. So that night at Holt Baptist Church, which was a huge church, thousands of people could fit in there. There was thousands inside and there was thousands outside. And when Martin went, they were singing, "Onward, Christian soldiers, marching as to war. Oh, and you could hear it. The sound was just resonating throughout the church and outside. People were singing. They were charged up. We're not going to get on the buses. No, no. Hatred must go as well as Jim Crow. Oh, boy. And Martin spoke. And Martin, every time he spoke, he let them know that we want this to be a movement that is non-violent. He taught them the things that Gandhi did in India. He taught them the words of Jesus of Nazareth about not treating your enemies mean, but to do good to those who hate you, who do things that are wrong to you. This was going to be a non-violent movement. Well, on Monday morning, we got up wondering what was going to happen, because one of those flyers, a maid had left it in her employer's house. And that white woman, when she saw that flyer saying that there was going to be a boycott on Monday morning, she called the newspaper. So it was all in the newspapers too. So on Sunday night, white Montgomery was tense. Black Montgomery was tense. Everyone was stuck. There was just this tension and excitement. It's like a tornado was just waiting and hovering over the city. So when we opened up our curtain windows at 6 a.m. and looked out at that first bus that came by our house, no one was on the bus. Because you have to understand that there's 50,000 black people in Montgomery at this time. Out of every 10 riders on the bus, 7 would be black. And there was no one. And the second bus, the same way. Later, Martin drove around. Only 1 or 2 people, black people, on the bus. But the sidewalks, ooh, they were filled with our people, dignified, unified, proud to be part of a movement that was moving forward to stop segregation on the buses. And also on that Monday morning, Rosa Parks was found guilty. She was charged $14. And of course, the NAACP lawyers appealed that. And there have been other court cases dealing with the violence and humiliation that we experienced on the buses. So there's other things moving through the courts as well. All of these things were heading towards the Supreme Court up in Washington, D.C. Now, I just had a baby in November, so I couldn't get out there in March or walk, but I was on the phone. I was calling and receiving calls and making sure that this person got over here, this person had a ride, and all these things, and letting people know where the different places were for the carpool pickup. I was busy. Plus, I was cooking all the time because Martin would be bringing people home and they needed to be fed. Plus, I had the baby. So I was busy at home for sure. And that Monday, at a mass meeting, they decided to continue the boycott. And every week, there was at least 2 churches that would have a mass meeting, because Martin wanted to make sure that people remembered to keep this non-violent, to love those who hate you, to do good to those who mistreat you, to be peaceful. But no one was teaching that at all to the white folk, because many of them were throwing eggs, they were throwing tomatoes, they were saying terrible things through their car windows. Sometimes they'd come out and they'd beat up people and tell them, get back on the bus, get back up on the bus. 381 days. 381 days, and we're actually sitting in court the following December because Montgomery officials said that the carpools were now illegal. And Martin was filled with despair. If that happens, then no one wants to walk again through the next winter. I mean, people have been bringing out their horses, Giddy up, giddy up. They were on their donkeys. Come on, old Abe. They were pulling their wagons filled with their children, or sometimes they'd have their bicycles, but it'd be raining and it'd be wind, and he didn't want them to go through another winter like that. But I told him, Martin, have faith, because the Supreme Court is going to come through. They're going to come through. And soon, a few days later, Martin received a piece of paper, and I saw him smile. The bailiff gave the judge a piece of paper, and I did not see him smile. Oh no, he was furious. The case was dismissed. What was on that paper is that the Supreme Court had declared that segregation on the buses in Montgomery, Alabama was illegal, not according to the Constitution of the United States of America. Yes, and we rejoiced. We rejoiced. And Martin, he didn't rejoice for too long. He got in the pulpit and taught our people how to get back on the bus. He said, now you don't get up there, pay your dime, and then go sit behind the bus driver or go sit next to a white person. No, you pay your dime and keep going to the back. That's what you're supposed to do. Now, there's 2 times during this bus boycott that were extremely special to me. The December of 1956, I was in Madison Square Garden in New York. I was on the same program with Duke Ellington and Harry Belafonte, and I was singing, and I came up with these freedom concerts where I would tell a story about what was going on in Montgomery and then sing a spiritual. And I raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for the civil rights movement. Not just then, but over the years as I was singing around the country, even around the world. I still kept up with my singing career. The other time was about a month into the bus boycott, and it was January of 1956. And I was sitting in my living room with my friend Mary, a different Mary from earlier, and I heard a car drive up, something hit the side of our house and roll down and clink, 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 clink. And I said, Mary, get to the back. And boom, there was a bomb. The house was filled with white smoke. The neighbors came, some with bats, others with rifles and guns and broken bottles. They were ready to go to the white section of town and riot. And I didn't know what Martin was saying when he came, because before this time, we didn't have anything violent happening personally to us. It was all a textbook. It was an essay. It was a sermon. But now, this was real. When Martin came from the church, he stood before the crowd and he said, go home. Put your weapons down. Put your weapons down. We must love the white men who did this. That's my husband. But my father-in-law and my father, they came the next day. We were staying in another family's home while our house gets repaired, because it had torn apart the front of our house and our porch had fallen down. Even the couch that I was in was broken in half. Daddy King come in with his booming voice, and he's a man of power and authority back in Atlanta. And if he tells you to jump, you ask him how high. And Martin was looking like a little scared schoolboy in front of him. And his father was telling Martin, you must step down from being president of the Montgomery Improvement Association. You're going to come home with me, you and Coretta and that baby, because a dead dog does no tricks. And you're going to work at our church, and I'll give you the same salary. I even give you more money. You must come home with me. But Martin was like this. And I was like this. And I realized that I was looking at death right in the face that night, when that bomb went off. And I survived. And I realized that my hand, my life was in God's hand. And I realized for the first time that I was really where I was supposed to be. Not singing in Paris or Rome or Moscow or San Francisco. Those are great things to do. But being right here in Montgomery with these unified, dignified people, with my husband, with our child, this is where I was supposed to be. Discovering Coretta Scott King. These is one of my posters about her, and you can see Martin Luther King in front of the bus, Rosa Parks in the bus with a white man sitting behind her. Here again is a bus that is integrated. Such a different spirit was on that bus. Here's like a one-room schoolhouse that was typical in those days. Here I am with the piano and our children. This is our wedding day. Here's the church, Dexter Avenue. There's the Capitol. Here we have Victory. And if you can see over here, I have me speaking and singing and praying and more things at the church. Thank you so much for this opportunity to talk to you about discovering Coretta Scott King.